we are happy also to be one of the one of the best organization, of course, coalition in sub-regions, in the Eastern Horn, also in the Southern Horn. We are doing well with other networks, of course, at sub-region level. And this is how we should always show leadership with the coalitions that are aiming to come. Even yesterday, I was called by my colleague from Rwanda. They are aiming on putting up another coalition in Rwanda. I think we'll talk later on so that we can support the development of an active coalition of human rights defenders in Rwanda as well. Otherwise, niseme tu kwa ufupi, asanteni sana kwa media mliopo hapa. Hii ni siku ambayo tunategemea kufungua siku zetu 4 za kukaa na kujipanga vizuri na kuandaa mazingira yetu kama human rights defenders. Claiming space kwa Kiswahili sisi tunaita nini, lakini ni kama vile kudai mazingira yetu mazuri ya kufanyia kazi kama watetezi wa binadamu, na hii imekuwa ikifanyika na defenders kwa kuzungua kwa nchi nyingine. Sisi kwetu ni mara ya pili, tushafanya 2012. Kwa hiyo tunategemea kwa siku zetu hizi 4 tutajifunza mambo mengi, lakini siku ya mwisho zaidi tunakwenda kufanya maadhimisho ya siku ya haki za binadamu Tanzania. Wakati huo pia tutapokea wale ambao wanaendesha msafara wa siku 16 za kupinga ukatili. Tumekubaliana na wadau wetu, wanachama wengine na pamoja na asasi zingine zinazosimamia swala hilo. Tutafanya pamoja siku hiyo, lakini pia tutakuwa na mkutano mkuu wa watetezi wa haki za binadamu Tanzania mchana. Kwa hiyo kwa siku zetu zote 4 hizi tunategemea tutakuwa tumepata nafasi ya kujifunza zaidi, kurefresh zaidi na kuongeza nguvu kwa ajili ya kwenda kufanya kazi zetu zingine, hasa mwaka unao kwenda kuanza. Kwa hiyo niwashukuru wote mliosafiri na niwatakie siku njema. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much, Onesmo. We're definitely proud of you and the work that you have done, the work that the coalition has done over the years. You're definitely one of the coalitions that have stood the test of time and continued to protect human rights defenders in your own country. Now I want to invite our Executive Director, Mr. Hassan Shire, and also just to appreciate the fact that he's been able to make it. Some of you have been following up on social media. We had a huge gathering in Ghana this week, bringing together commissioners from different national human rights institutions across the continent, as well as civil society organizations, in a dialogue to operationalize the Marrakesh Declaration on how national human rights institutions can work to promote human rights across the continent. So Hassan came in this morning to join us for this meeting. So thank you, Hassan, for making it to be with us today. Let's welcome Mr. Hassan Shire. Let's welcome him.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
I see that, and I cannot even sleep. I just arrived at 6 o'clock. Whole night traveling. Yesterday working in Accra. Lost my bag. Came with my running shoes and my sport things which I was traveling with. Because of commitment, because of your presence, your energy. Your beautiful country you have, but the voices are down. I don't know why. I saw Haji trying to bring you out. Good morning. Good morning. Now I can hear you. You can hear me. Let's talk in energy. These are claiming spaces. Okay, Dr. Lilian Gabadi, Chairperson, National Council of NGOs. Mr. Patience Mathieu, Executive Secretary Commission for Human Rights and Good Governance. My comrade brother Onesmo Olungurumwa, National Coordinator, Tanzania Human Rights Defenders Coalition. Comrades, Human Rights Defenders, all protocols respectfully observed. 10 years ago, we were here in Dar es Salaam, as Onesmo said, specifically at the White Sands Hotel, where we held our second edition of our annual rotating claiming spaces, tactical tools for human rights defenders in Tanzania. This presents an assessment on the ground to understand gaps and needs in protection for human rights defenders in Tanzania, an advanced conversation to have an inclusive safety net in the country for better networking, solidarity, and respond to emerging situations. We aim at building a strong voice of human rights defenders for effective participation in promoting accountability, transparency, and rule of law in Tanzania. I was pleased to see during my last visit in May of this year to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Tanzanian Human Rights Defenders Coalition with admirable growth and consistency in their work under the leadership of my brother Onesmo. Let's clap for Onesmo. He had stood up courageously in steering the coalition over the years. Equally, I'm pleased to note that we have facilitated building the structure of the coalition of women human rights defenders Tanzania that will complement the Tanzania Human Rights Defenders Coalition and will be working together with a specific focus on women human rights defenders. I saw a full table there, and in different tables also Women Human Rights Defenders Coalition. Can you stand up for the rest of the coalition members to know you, who you are? Thank you. This is the members of your also coalition. This week, right in this hotel, we are here now, which floor? Third floor? Second floor. In the same floor, or maybe one below, the Hotel Defenders is facilitating a meeting of the board members and the secretariat of the Women's Network to strengthen their governance systems. Have you learned some? Very good. May I announce that the Coalition of Women Human Rights Defenders Tanzania is now hosting the East Africa Women Human Rights Defenders Network, and that's a big topic. Fellows, since 2011, Claiming Spaces has been a flagship for defenders organized yearly in all the countries we have mandate in the East and Horn of Africa, and this exclusively with immeasurable support of the Swedish International Development Agency, SIDA, whose member maybe will be in the room or on her way, right? Eva. Out of 11 countries we covered, only Eritrea, Rwanda, and Djibouti have not had the chance to benefit of this grandiose event. And now, Brother Onesmo was saying Rwandans, they want also to have their own coalitions, even though there's some attempts already there. The event is designed to bring together human rights defenders from within the country, including community-based HRDs, to network, share, and cross-pollinate experiences while being equipped with requisite tools and expertise to enable them to build resilience and carry out their human rights work. The 4-day will enable HRDs in Tanzania to take an organized approach, building strategies to maintain their well-being and creating space for activism. And honestly say, it's the best place now to re-energize yourself when you have a free time as well. Distinguished guests, human rights protection is collective responsibility. While states bear primary responsibility of protecting human rights. And we know that the president, no less than the president of Tanzania, Her Excellency Madam Suluhu Hassan, pledged to be the #1 human rights defender in Tanzania. Let's clap for her. While we know that the realization of an environment in which all people enjoy their rights as enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the African Charter on Human and People's Rights is the only possible when there is strong cooperation and collaboration among different stakeholders, including the Commission, the NGO Forum, the Coalition, the government, and the law societies. When all the stakeholders are cooperating, then protection will be possible. The presence in this room with us of the National Council of NGOs, the Commission for Human Rights and Good Governance, and development partners accept this fact. This is why human rights defenders are important in this matrix for the resolve to advance the cause of rights, hold violators accountable, and expand civic space, often at great physical and emotional cost to themselves. As we are celebrating a week of International Human Rights Day, we can't ignore the right challenge our continent, and particularly our sub-region, is facing with: the rising violence and conflict, the insecurity and political instability, the natural resource extractions, and the devastating consequence of our environment, the rampant corruption and the lack of accountability, as well as repression with impunity against the human rights defenders or individuals exercising their freedom to simply assemble or to express. As defenders, we remain consistent and accessible in providing holistic protection needs, advocacy platform to the highest level to amplify the local human rights defenders' voices. And in fact, Tanzania was the first country represented by Onesmo to go physically to Geneva, and after the COVID, 2-3 years, no one was going to Geneva physically, it was only videos. But personally to go there and participate the proceedings of the UDH, Universal Periodic Review. Am I correct? Yeah. The defenders will remain. Okay. Here in Tanzania, we welcome the efforts by the government to review legal status that hitherto constrained the operations of human rights defenders like journalists, and applaud the reopening of previous suspended media houses. We hope to see also openness to have a meaningful participation of civil society in the different reform processes and ensure that legal framework governing NGOs are in line with the African Commission on Human and People's Rights guidelines on freedom of association and assembly. It's important to note that laws should be an enabler to the work of human rights defenders, not a restriction to their operations and limitation of their space to fully contribute to the development of their country. Distinguished guests, regrettably, the high-handedness and the lack of due process that has characterized the Tanzanian government's actions in Ngorongoro Conservation Area, where local communities have been forcefully displaced, prioritizing business and than the human dignity and collective rights as enshrined in the African Charter, is a huge concern. I want to acknowledge the presence in this room of those victims who were standing up, defending their communities, and some of them in this hall. Please stand up for recognition, groups who represent the constituencies in that area. Stand up, please. Ngorongoro. You deserve our full support, and we will provide. We hope to see redress and reparation mechanism available for the victims of Ngorongoro. All these developments make the role of HRDs not just necessary, but also pertinent. I would like to pay tribute to the HRDs here and outside who have braved this turbulence to report on rights violation, document transgression by the individual using state power to repress citizens and to pursue justice for victims. It's because of you, blatant action, that the world has gotten to know the extent of this crisis and why the African human rights mechanisms and international mechanisms continue to keep these issues and conflicts in their agenda. Events like claiming spaces are therefore proposed not just to strengthen your resolve, commitment, and to validate your efforts, but to ensure that you are connected and have solidarity mechanism to continue your human rights work. As such, over the next 4 days, we hope you will benefit from the existing expertise here. We will endeavor to skill you in various areas needed to build your resilience. Distinguished guests, I would like to conclude by acknowledging the efforts of Defend Defenders and Tanzanian Human Rights Defenders Coalition team in coordinating and preparing this colorful event. My sincere appreciation to the Swedish International Development Agency and most importantly my fellow comrade HRDs for putting aside your busy schedules to come here for this important communion, and I look forward to interacting with you all for the next few days. I therefore would be declaring open the proceeding of the claiming spaces, tactical tools for HRDs in Tanzania 2022. I thank you so much. I think we should have been providing as well Swahili translation simultaneously. Yeah? Yeah. While the rest of East Africa now started, particularly in Uganda, cabinet ministers weekly, there's a 1 hour before that every minister has to sit for Swahili class. Correct? HRDs, I think we have to devote 1 hour English class as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Hassan. We do appreciate you being here, and thank you for those remarks. Now I would like to invite our next speaker, Dr. Lilian Mbadi, the chairperson of National Council of NGOs, to address us. Dr. Lilian, you're welcome. Let's welcome her.
Yeah.
Mr. Hassan Shire, Executive Director, Defenders. Mr. Patience Ntwina, Executive Secretary, Commissioner for Human Rights and Good Governance. Mr. Onesmo, National Coordinator for THRDC. All members of Defenders who are here, journalists, all protocols observed. I greet you in the name of Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania. Let me take this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude for the THRDC to invite me as chairperson of National Council of NGO to be part of you guys in this week for what you'll be doing and claiming for space. I appreciate a lot on behalf of the National Council of NGOs. Dear participants and guests of honor, as you highlighting in your program as human rights defenders, the challenges which you are facing towards operating or implementing your activities, especially through our experience as National Council of NGO in Tanzania. We have seen how our members and human rights defenders you are facing as a challenge in terms of operating environment, and also how you guys are being treated when you are to do your activities in the countries. So we appreciated you very much as you are, as Nakongo, as your national tools, which can be able to support you in implementing your activities. We appreciate to be part of your activities and being invited to this forum. Dear participants, as we all understand, especially the members who are here in Tanzania, the National Council of NGO is a coordination forum which we have members across the countries. As you will be implementing your activities, working with the National Council of NGO, as Mr. Onesmo and his team have demonstrated, we have seen it to be very supportive and also helping you guys sometimes to open and clear your working environment when you are facing challenges. We are honored and very happy to be part of your week in discussing the tools and also claiming your spaces, which we understand and we know it has never been easy to work on claiming your space as activists, as stakeholders who are supporting governments towards implementing their strategies in the country. So as National Council of NGO, we have a role, and one of our biggest role is supporting the coordination, speaking on behalf of you as stakeholders, but also supporting you in ensuring that you can be able to fulfill your mission and your strategies as you registered. As I mentioned before, the National Council of NGO, we have representatives in each regions, and you as human rights defenders or members of defenders, I would argue and also recommend you to consider working with us as your tool, as your forum, to ensure that we can be able to support you to fulfill your missions. One of the experience which Nakongo have experienced recently in this year, in 2022, we remember some challenges which the defenders in Tanzania were facing and continue to face it. But what we experienced, which is very commendable to Mr. Onesmo, is how we were able to pull the government, firstly, to understand that we are positive partners, and secondly, to be able to accept that they registered us with our mission and they needed to provide us space to work. So, dear participants who are here and those ones who are listening outside here, we should also remember that working with the government positively, it should be the way to go, which will help us to fulfill our missions. I remember when THRDC were celebrating their 10th year, we had our Honorable President Samia Suluhu Hassan to be part of the guest of honor in that session, which, to be very honest, as Nakongo, we found that it was something to commend to THRDC. We never thought that of recently, with all what our partners have experienced in last or in recent years, it would be possible to have our excellent president to participate into our activity. So we appreciate to Mama Samia to be able to understand us as stakeholders and be able to show by being there presently and present her speech before the public about us as defenders with the work we are doing. Dear participants, as Nakongo, we would like to commend you while you are executing your duties, while you are learning on tools and how you should be able to claim your spaces. We should remember that we were registered under the NGO Act of 2001 with its amendments, but also we have a government, especially government of Tanzania, which is listening to us, and we have to operate in adherence to our policies and regulations which registered us. Always we believe, as your leader, when you are to claim your space, positive approach always produce positive results. If you are to claim your space with your host government, ensure that you can be able to request your space in a positive and respectable manners. We are so happy with the current government into power. We have been able to see a lot of evidence, examples of discussions which can go in the table, and as stakeholders we can be able to be heard and to be given a space to do the activities of what we intended to do. Lastly, I would like also to emphasize by saying, please work with the National Council of NGO in Tanzania. For those who are in Tanzania, Nakongo, we are here to support you. Nakongos, our doors are opening. We have been able to chip in wherever we have been asked to do so. We are available across the country at regional level, but also we are available even us as national leaders. Work with us, use us. We are available anytime to support you, and we are also honored to be here and learn from you guys as you continue with this week's session. And also we will use the knowledge we have acquired from this workshop to continue to see the possible and the possibilities of supporting you guys more and more. Before I complete, dear participants and also guests of honor, I would like also to recognize the presence of my colleague from the National Council of NGO, who is representing Mbeya region, Mr. Mwakyembe. Can you raise your hand and greet the members? And also, I see in your program you have more members of National Council. I've seen Jane Mangigita. I don't know if she is here already. She's also part of the program. So we appreciate Onesmo with your team a lot to see us that we have a space to work with you guys and support you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your commitment to continue working with human rights defenders in this country. I would like to officially invite now our keynote speaker to come and address us, Mr. Patience Mtwina, the Executive Secretary of the Commission for Human Rights and Good Governance. Please, you're welcome. Let's welcome him to the stage.
Good morning. Habari ya asubuhi. Asante sana. Mr. Onesmo Orengorumwa, the National Coordinator of the Tanzania Human Rights Defenders Coalition, Mr. Hassan Shure, the Executive Director of the Defenders and the Chairperson, African Defenders, representatives from the East Africa and the Horn of Africa Human Rights Defenders Network, Dr. Lilian Badi, Chairperson of the National Council for Non-Governmental Organizations, various government officials of the United Republic of Tanzania present here, representatives from the civil societies organizations, our panelists, moderators, and the journalists present, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure and indeed a privilege for me to associate with this important event, and specifically for the opportunity to give an opening address at this occasion. Kindly allow me, on my own behalf and on behalf of the Commission for Human Rights and Good Governance, to thank the organizing committee for according the Commission and me personally this honor. I commend the Tanzania Human Rights Defenders Coalition for organizing this important workshop and for outstanding achievements recorded in the past 12 years of its existence. You have all along remained consistent and persistent to your vision and mission. The fact you have been able to convene regularly in the past 12 years is in itself a testimony of the strength and vibrancy of your coalition. It is not surprising, therefore, you have increased your membership. This coalition is playing an important role in advancing human rights protection and promotion agenda in the country. And despite challenges you encounter, the impact of your work is beyond observing. You have been in the forefront in advocating for civic space and improving of working environment for human rights defenders, and in engaging with relevant government authorities whenever the need arose. I commend you for always being ahead of everyone. I see in the work of this coalition an important building block being erected, which will make it easier for your members to discharge their functions and engage with the government more effectively. In the same vein, I would like to acknowledge the contribution of defenders for strengthening the work of human rights defenders throughout the East and the Horn of Africa sub-region by reducing their vulnerability to risks of persecutions, by enhancing their capacity to effectively defend human rights. Ladies and gentlemen, Chirag is honored by the relationship it has with the international, regional, and the national human rights organizations, including THRDC. The benefits that we have in achieving are eminent, and they include strength in knowledge and skills in human rights education, capacity building on various spheres of human rights issues, as well as platforms for exchanging experience with our fellow African national human rights institutions and ombudsmen, and for that we are humbled. Our today's agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, this workshop agenda, claiming spaces, tactical tools for human rights defenders in Tanzania, resonates well with the realities of the day. You will agree with me that the demand for more conducive working space for civil society organizations and the human rights defenders in particular is on the rise. there is mounting public pressure on freedom of assembly and freedom of expression, to name but a few. I sincerely commend THRDC for choosing such a pertinent agenda which addresses the perennial complaints of our people, which threaten loss of trust and confidence in our government and institutions. Certainly, one important citizen's need is to see human rights principles of good governance and human dignities are respected and observed by government and individuals. I personally believe that this desire can be attained only if the government and the various stakeholders work together and in mutual partnership. I am informed that there will be discussions on tactical tools to claim human rights defenders space to work, advocacy strategies and resources mobilization, and CSO's sustainability in Tanzania, among others. My humble appeal as regards tactical tools and advocacy strategies is that let's focus on those which are practical and relevant to socio-economic and the political environment of our country. In that way, I believe we will be able to progressively achieve better and sustainable results. Ladies and gentlemen, human rights defenders play an important role in the promotion and protection of human rights at different levels, including by collecting and disseminating information, calling attention to violations of states of their obligation to promote and respect human rights, and by highlighting abuses of human rights by other actors. As a whole, the work of human rights defenders bring many benefits to communities, from helping to make government more accountable and fighting impunity, to protecting vulnerable communities from harm and providing assistance to victims, to enhancing respect for rights related to economic participation. Nonetheless, in many countries in the world, including Tanzania, human rights defenders have become victims of violence, harassment, and human rights abuses and violations, including forced disappearance, arbitrary arrest or detention, unlawful imprisonment, torture, sexual violence, and unfair trials. Similarly, in both democratic and non-democratic states, many governments seek to stifle civil society and jeopardize the work of human rights defenders, both online and offline, including by enacting new legislations and regulations that limit the full enjoyment of fundamental rights and freedoms, imposing restrictions on civil society or media organizations and such, by taking away their legal status and criminalizing peaceful social protests and using harsh tactics and intimidation and unlawful arbitrary surveillance and threats and reprisals. In spite of challenges on the other aspects of human rights, specifically civil and political rights, the Tanzania government has been doing fairly well in the progressive realization of the economic and social rights. On the other hand, the Commission has noted states' commitments towards improving freedom of expression, association, and assembly. Earlier this year, the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties engaged the Commission, the national authorities, and the CSOs to recommend on 8 pieces of legislations and regulations under which freedom of association, freedom of expression, as well as freedom of assembly are confined. That initiative was followed by an invitation to key election stakeholders, including political parties and the police force, to a panel discussion concerning the overall political situation in the country. In addition, the Minister for Information and Communication technology invited media stakeholders to discuss the way the media and the government can work amicably and cooperatively. The Commission views these initiatives as a constructive way towards resolving current challenges that restrict the full enjoyment of freedom of expression, assembly, and association. To a great extent, Tanzania legal framework provides means for effective interventions in the protection and promotion of rights of human rights defenders and special groups, and the Commission is confident to say that the current statistics are much more in favor of such effectiveness. The Commission wishes to take this opportunity to acknowledge and commend the role that the state has been playing towards the implementation of the Marrakesh Declaration of 2018, and although the declaration sets out commitments to be undertaken by the National Human Rights Institution on promoting, protecting the rights of human rights defenders, the state has been working hand in hand with the SHRAG, the National Human Rights Institution, in introducing and implementing the declaration. SHRAG, in cooperation with the state, has hosted twice a capacity building training for staff and technical experts, as well as for senior officials of the Tanzanian government authorities, with a human rights mandate on fostering and deepening the implementation of the Marrakesh Declaration. The result of this initiative was the development of the one-year action plan, which contains activities that can be undertaken in that period to enhance the protection of human rights defenders in Tanzania. The action plan also identifies actors that will undertake specific activities and a timeline which these activities ought to be completed in order to achieve the overall objectives of the Marrakesh Declaration. Ladies and gentlemen, to improve an enabling environment for CSO to function without facing intimidation, violence, or government interference, and provide protection to human rights defenders in Tanzania, I wish to recommend the following to various actors. The state, it should speed up the amendment of process on the laws that have been continuously complained against, including the criminal justice system, and such laws include Cyber Crimes Act, the Online Content Regulations, and the Police General Orders, to mention but a few. Also, the state should ensure that the law enforcers who violate human rights are being held accountable. And the state should strengthen the national human rights mechanism to ensure better protection for human rights defenders. My recommendation to human rights defenders, CSOs, and other stakeholders: they should join hands to capacitate human rights defenders on human rights laws and principles of good governance, and to apply a right-based approach in their work. Also, they should regularly conduct capacity building and trainings to human rights defenders, since their work for protecting and promoting human rights is a specialized profession which requires adequate preparation, specific technical skills, and significant substantive knowledge in order to be effectively conducted, as a good number of human rights defenders still lack adequate capacity to monitor, document, and report human rights violations. Also, they should comply with national, regional, and international standards during the implementation of their daily work to avoid conflicts with the government authorities. Also, they should work for a better future and share common cause of justice, equality, and human dignity as their major tasks to promote awareness of rights, assist communities in articulating concerns, shape strategies, influence policy and laws, and press for accountability, and they should also collect and channel their views of community so that they can be fully informed of decision-making on public policies. Lastly, human rights defenders, political parties, media, and the state and the police force should opt to dialogue, means as a way to resolve concern regarding rights to freedom of association, assembly, and expression. SHRAG's commitment. SHRAG, as the National Human Rights Institution, wishes to reiterate its commitment to work in collaboration with all stakeholders in the promotion, protection, and preservation of human rights and principles of good governance in the country, particularly in coordinating awareness programs and implementation of the Marrakesh Declaration and advocating the conducive working environment for CSOs and human rights defenders, which include advocating for law and policy change and mitigating controversies between the state and human rights defenders. Ladies and gentlemen, I have mentioned above how honored and at the same time humbled our commission is for being a custodian of human rights and good governance in the country, and the prominent benefits that we acquire from human rights defenders. The Commission will make these benefits with our stated legal functions and continue to tirelessly support the United Republic of Tanzania, serve its people in a way that respect, protect, and promote human rights and the principles of good governance sufficiently. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, this workshop offers a unique opportunity to learn from each other's experience and best practices. I find it important that you find ways and the means of forging closer collaboration amongst yourself and with other stakeholders, government in particular. And such collaborations will go a long way towards widening working spaces as we work towards improving protection of human rights in Tanzania. I dream to see your coalition rise to the occasion and take our country to a great heights. I encourage you to keep up the good work. I cordially wish you a good and future workshop, fruitful workshop, and all the best in your preparation to celebrate the International Human Rights Day as well as International Human Rights Defenders Day. With these many words, I declare this workshop officially open. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our keynote speaker, you have really gone into details about the issues that we face as human rights defenders. You have given us some concrete recommendations. I hope we're taking note on those recommendations and reassured us of the support of SHRAG to human rights defenders. Thank you very much for those words. Now I want to invite our Manager for Advocacy, Research and Communications, Estella Kabashwezi, to give us very briefly information about the report that we're going to officially launch. And then after that, we'll break and go for a group photo and then tea break. So Estella, please come and give us just a brief on the report.
Distinguished guests, please allow us to screen a very short trailer on our report, and then you will give me about 5 to 8 minutes to go through a quick presentation that summarizes our report that's titled Pushing Boundaries, the case of Eastern Horn of Africa's youth human rights defenders.
Shall we then go down?
Yes, please.
Esther, first.
Around the world, young people are striving for peace, justice, inclusion, gender equality, and human rights, he said. You showed the courage and the persistence that is often lacking among older generation. Because it is your future, your livelihoods, your freedom, your security, your environment, you do not and must not take no for an answer. To make sure our work is relevant and effective, we need your ideas, your energy, and your creativity.
Thank you, Esther. This was just to set the tone. I'll quickly get into a very short presentation that summarizes our key findings, methodology, and proposes a few recommendations for our youth activists. As said, our report is titled Pushing Boundaries, the case of Eastern Horn of Africa's human rights defenders. A few takeaways. Young people qualify as human rights defenders when they engage in human rights work. Youth human rights defenders form both organized and informal movements to bring about societal change or oppose injustice. While youth HRDs operate in the same environment as other HRDs, we also acknowledge that sometimes they face unique challenges. They challenge traditional power structures, which exposes them to risks. Some challenges they also face include age-based discrimination, in addition to discrimination based on race, gender, sexual orientation, and other socioeconomic status. Our methodology, this research covered, it was a regional analysis looking at the continent. We did both in-country missions and also desk research. We visited the countries highlighted there. Tanzania, we interviewed 10 human rights defenders, Ethiopia 8, South Sudan 10, Kenya 11, Uganda 16, Somaliland 10, and then we did desk research in other countries of the continent. That map highlights the scope of our research. Our key findings, as you will see highlighted, we contextualize the operating environment in the sub-region. Secondly, we find that youth mobilize mainly through ways, digital activism, through protests and demonstrations, and through activism, which is a form of expression using music, arts, and therapy. We also find that misconceptions and stereotypes attached to youth human rights defenders sometimes prevent them from effectively carrying out their work. We find financial, digital, social-cultural, legal, and political barriers that also limit human rights defenders' work and the opportunities for young people to pursue activism. On a negative side, we find that various actors take advantage of the challenges that the youth face to promote forms of mobilization, including civil unrest that are incompatible with human rights. We go on to list examples where this has been found. The trends of youth mobilization can be categorized into 3 areas. One, we have digital activism, mainly through social media, so we explore this in detail in the report. We also identified protests and public assemblies as a form of mobilization, and as I earlier said, artivism, which is thriving, where young people express themselves through music, arts, and other forms of therapy. Some of the challenges and barriers that we identified include social-cultural barriers, where we see social norms and tradition impacting youth activism negatively. We see various misconceptions and stereotypes that are also highlighted, and then we also explore age-based stereotypes. Digital barriers, we see digital surveillance, cyberbullying and digital threats, internet shutdown, cracking of social media outlets, restrictive legislation, to mention but a few. But also to note that these digital barriers also do apply to other human rights defenders in general. Next. Financial barriers, again, impact the way youth mobilize in the sub-region. We see funding challenges, financial constraints to accessing legal aid services, economic hardships also affecting young people's participation in activism. Legal barriers, we see lack of legal protection for the wider group of human rights defenders and also including youth activists. We see a restrictive legal framework that curtails civic space. We also under this component explore our anti-terrorism laws and how those have also been used to curtail civic space and particularly targeted young people. We see bureaucracy involved in establishing non-governmental organizations, and then we also see inadequate knowledge of laws relating to their work that also affects youth HRDs. In terms of political and social barriers, we see lack of sufficient political representation for the youth demographic. We see political persecution, intimidation, reprisal attacks, and then we also see young people being involved in unrest. In terms of recommendations and key takeaways, we make recommendations to the governments in the sub-region, first, to adopt national legislations that recognizes and protects human rights defenders, to ratify and domesticate the African Youth Charter, to adopt the East African Community Youth Policy, to conduct public awareness campaigns to sensitize the public and key stakeholders on the meaningful contribution made by youth human rights defenders, and lastly, to tackle stereotypes and age-based discriminations. To development partners, we also highlight some of the key recommendations to them: to strengthen awareness raising, training and advocacy efforts, and legal compliance on the laws affecting human rights defenders, provide capacity building on physical and digital protection tools, as well as on proposal writing and fundraising, consider providing core sustainable funding to youth-led organizations, including increasing funding for youth projects and programs, in addition to making sure that they are suitable and accessible to various youth movements and structures. And lastly, to our young human rights defenders, we also urge them to continue to engage in promotion and protection of all human rights, including by monitoring developments, reporting on situations, and engaging in other advocacy activities, among others, to build networks and cooperate with other youth organizations locally, regionally, and internationally to enable them to learn from a broader movement, and to encourage senior human rights defenders to provide mentorship to younger human rights defenders. This will facilitate a safe platform to enhance knowledge sharing and to build resilience for our young defenders on the continent. Thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you very much, Estella. That's just a synopsis of the report that we are going to launch. I want to recognize the presence of Miss Eva Ladeborn, who is coming from the Swedish Embassy. You're very welcome. And thank you very much for joining us. This Claiming Spaces has been made possible with funding from CEDA. And CEDA has been our long-standing partner for a very long time. So all the Claiming Spaces we have held since 2011, it's been through the support of CEDA. So thank you for coming to represent CEDA. Now I would like to invite this table to come and help us to officially launch the report. So Hassan, if you can lead us to that table where the report is. And can we also get the mobile microphone? Rosabella, if we can get the mobile microphone.
This morning from Accra. My back. Okay, we declare this report officially launched. That's the use very hard. Now it's officially cut down.
If I may also just ask you to come right in front with the report here for a photo.
Yeah.
So Estella, you come and join the team. So we're going to head outside for a group photo. So if we go out at the main entrance, you'll be directed. We have a group photo, and we'll come back up here, take tea, and then we'll have a session on the situation of human rights defenders in the country. And I promise that from there onwards, we will be using more Swahili than English. So you'll also be able to participate a bit more. Thank you very much. Let's go downstairs for a group photo.
Okay, let's follow Lulu. Welcome, Karibu.
You can photo. Let's go up. Photo.